You'll have access to this slide deck in a few short minutes, but everybody, hands off mice, look up here. Have you ever seen something like this when you were supposed to enter an integer, but you entered something else and then it crashed? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll show you right here. I made a little program, enter a number. So I hit play, and if I'm over here and I go hello, instead it gives me all this garbage. It's like, well, check it out. The keyword is right here, value error, and it's saying hello is not a valid integer in base 10. Base 10 is our number counting system. Again, like if I just hit enter, it's like, okay, it crashes. If I enter 3.2, that's not an integer either. It's a decimal number. Okay, so we have a way to deal with this so our program won't crash. And it's to do this thing called a try except structure. So this kind of crash is called an exception. And the bottom line is Python just crashed. So rather than, it's not broken, but it says, I can't run this program anymore. I'm going to stop. So this can happen like with our quadratic formula program. If you didn't enter a number, it would crash. So Python's trying to do whatever you told it to do. Like for the quadratic formula, remember we entered an A and a B and a C. And if for one of those you didn't enter a number, it would just crash. So we have a way to make it work better, where instead of crashing, it says, hey, I asked you for a number. Can you try again? So I want to point out right here in the middle, I said, even though it's tempting to ignore these messages, they actually tell us what's going on. It says value error, invalid literal for int with base 10. Basically, it's saying when you enter hello instead of a number, it can't turn that into an int with that int command. So it just says, hey, I can't do that. I wish it just said, I can't do that, sorry. But instead it says value error, invalid literal, int base 10. Okay, so today we're going to learn how to make this work anyway, and it's called a try and except structure. So here's an example of our new thing. With try excepts, you're always going to have a while true loop. So you do while true, and then inside of that, you say the word try with a colon. Right here. And then inside the try, indented, you do the thing that you're going to try. In this case, you're going to ask for an integer. A equals int input, please enter an integer. And then notice right here, I do a break. Now, if they enter an integer, then it goes to the break line and it hops out and it says, thanks for printing an integer. If they don't enter an integer, instead of crashing, it goes down here. It says, except if there's a value error, then instead of crashing, print not valid, sorry, please try again. So I'm thinking, what if I just copied this code and put it in that other window? We'll just see it happen. So I'll stretch it out. So please enter an integer, and I'm going to hit enter, and it says not valid, sorry, please try again. I'm going to say hello. Not valid, sorry, please try again. So what's happening there is it's getting to this line, and instead of crashing with a value error right here on this int, it hops down here to the value error section. It says accept value error. I mean, if you got a value error, accept value error. Don't do the break, just print this message, and then we're in this while true, so it goes right back to the top and starts over again. So let me enter an integer 23, and then it says thanks for entering an integer 23. So questions? So let's look at each part. While true, we have to have a while true in this. Otherwise, it doesn't repeat if they made a mistake. Next, you have to have, every time you have a try, you have to have an except. And technically, you could do other things besides accept value error, but that's the one we're going to use in this class. Like you probably could do except, do you know how you're not allowed to divide by 0 in math? Mm-hmm. So you could probably key off that and make sure if instead of dividing by 0, it would give an error. But every time there's a try, you have to have a couple lines below an accept value error. Hey, everybody, Kevin, everybody, take out your earbuds. You shouldn't have your earbuds in right now. I don't mind if you put them in when we're working. I don't want you playing with your phones. If I see your phone, I'm going to take your phone. So I'm not giving you permission to have your phone out. But I definitely don't want to see earbuds in when I'm trying to teach you new material. So we have the while true, and then we have the try and the except. And then in the try, you have to have something you're going to try. In this case, it's the A equals input. And then if that succeeds, then it goes to the break and it hops out of the loop and it goes down to this line. If it fails, it comes over here and prints the error message. And then it goes back to the start of the loop because it's in a loop. The while true loops forever. Questions? It goes right back to there. The code is basically saying try to get an integer from the user, but if there's a value error, execute this other code instead of crashing. And by the way, keep looping until we get an integer. That's English. Here's an example that doesn't work. Check it out. Instead of asking for an integer, I'm asking for somebody's name. And here's the deal. No matter what they type in there, it's going to be fine. It's never going to give you a value error here because you could hit enter and enter nothing. It's like fine. You can enter numbers. You can enter text. When it's just an input call, it doesn't work. It has to be like an int input, something that would crash where something might go wrong. But nothing can go wrong with that input command that would cause a value error. So here's an example that does other qualifications on the number. So we still have the try. We're still getting the number. But instead of the next line being a break, check it out. It says if A is less than or equal to 0, it says it needs to be positive. Please try again. Otherwise, it breaks. So this is an example where I'm making sure it's a positive number, positive integer. This should really say positive integer. So I fixed it. So see, if they say hello, it's going to go down here, say not valid, sorry, please try again. If they enter -5, then it's going to say it needs to be positive, please try again. And then in both cases, it repeats. But if they entered 10, it's going to break. Here's another example that qualifies. It's almost the same thing. But I added this word continue. And just so you know, continue is another way to tell Python to go back to the top of the loop. It's like saying go back to the top of the loop instead of breaking. So inside of a loop, you can say continue if you want to go back to the top, and you can say break if you want to get out. The continue command tells Python to go back to the start. So now, pardon? In this case, it would repeat, even if we didn't say continue. But I wanted everyone to see the continue command, because sometimes it comes in. Good point, Richard. It's not required at all, but I wanted you to see the command. Okay, so right now, before we do our official assignment, go back to make a new assignment. This isn't day 17 warm-up. This is day 17. This is going to be where you do today's program. So let's set it up. Day 17, try except is what I want it to be called. Don't use your old program. Make a new program. Programs are free. And I want you to say while true, we're going to do a try except all together here. And I want it to be, we're asking for an integer that uses the try except structure, and then we're going to print your name that many times. So Richard and I will walk around and help you. I'll show you one of these things. This would be, this one would be fine. So you need while true with a colon, hit enter, and then try and a colon, hit enter. I like doing these little practices because that way you get to practice it a little bit before you're like, it's in an assignment and you're like, ah! Yeah, set value error, and then print the message. And I'm giving you the slide deck in just a minute. So while true, you say try. I don't care what your variable is called. I'm calling it n. Int input, enter an integer. Break, accept value error, print. That's not an integer. And then I want you to print your name as many times as their integer. And I would just do a for loop. For x in range n, print your name that many times. So enter an integer. I hit enter. That's not an integer. Test your work, by the way. Just hit enter. I hate it when we do a test or quiz or you guys have a program. And the first thing I'm going to do is check that you did the try except right. And I just hit enter and your program crashes because you never did it. Like, don't just test it with a number. Test it without a number. And this time I entered 2,000. So I got 2,000 hazes. That's, bless you, that's a lot of hazes. It'd be more fun if it was n equals space. So now we're going to have some hazes. Woo! You don't have to do that part. I'm going to stop this.